HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Everyday.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Keishla Adderley. Thanks so much for joining us. Topping the news tonight, a strong call to step up border controls to curb the influx of illegal guns into the country. High-level talks convened in the U.S. last week between the National Security Minister, Dr. Bernard Nottage, and U.S. officials with the aim of lowering crime levels here in the Bahamas. Meantime, the Minister of Tourism is giving some recommendations of his own, largely centered around gun control. Here's Janaea Noel Ferguson.
What about the guns? We need to have in place a comprehensive program to stop gun trafficking in the Bahamas.
A call for action by Tourism Minister Obi Wilshcombe, who believes more must be done to stop the proliferation of guns in the country, as U.S. President Barack Obama hopes to counteract illegal gun activity in the United States. Wilshcombe says this is evidence that countries like the Bahamas are also reeling from the overwhelming scourge of gun violence. He feels the Bahamas must have better border patrols.
The truth is there's so many guns on the streets in the United States of America, we don't make guns. So where are they coming from? If he's talking about the proliferation of guns in America, people getting guns, selling guns, and getting in the hands of wrong people, then what is he saying? What he's saying, in my view, is that it can influence what's happening in countries that are close proximity. And the Bahamas is close proximity. So he's literally saying that there's a problem in the United States of America that's producing the guns. Well, we should understand that we're going to be influenced by that, which should tell us now we got to tighten our borders, which should tell us that we have to do more to ensure that whether it's port of entries or the marinas, wherever we are in the Bahamas, from Managua to Bimini, we have to ensure that we have tighter control. That's what we have to work on.
With 149 murders recorded last year and 3 this year, the majority committed with guns, Wilshcombe said much can be done to combat the crime situation. A major part of the problem is taking guns off of the street.
Of course, we have to face reality. Guns come from the United States of America and guns come from Venezuela. We know that. So we know that we should know that we've got to work closely with their authorities to help us in the management of our borders, because if we do not, then of course you'll see more on the streets. I think that's where we start. Get the guns off the streets. Let's get the guns off the street, because I'm still a firm believer that there's one thing about crime after the fact. I want to be able to arrest the mind before the crime. In other words, if I can get into the minds of the people, if I can cause people to understand we don't have to kill, I think we'll do much better. But going after the criminal after he's committed the act, the person's already dead. Let's stop the killing. And the way to stop the killing is to begin by getting the weapons that are being used, and the weapon being used in our country nowadays is guns.
Now, Tourism Minister Obi Wilshcombe says that meetings with U.S. and government officials continue in addressing the crime problem, but he says this is something the government cannot tackle alone. Janaea Noel Ferguson, ZNS Network News.
A 23-year-old woman appeared in the magistrate's court today charged with the murder of her father in a knife attack on the weekend. Fern and Carey was in court for the rather bizarre arraignment.
Police are holding 23-year-old Antonia Butler responsible for the murder of her father, Anthony Tony Butler. Butler, an instructor at the College of the Bahamas and a member of the Valley Boys Chonkunu group, was allegedly stabbed in the chest by the accused at his home in Imperial Park on Saturday. He died at the scene. In court, Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt charged Butler with intentionally and unlawfully causing Butler's death. She was not required to enter a plea. Bail was denied and she was remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections. A voluntary bill of indictment will be filed, fast-tracking the case to Supreme Court. Following the arraignment, Butler, who was not represented by an attorney, told the court that she pleaded guilty to the charge while in police custody. However, the chief magistrate told Butler she would have to enter a plea when she appears in Supreme Court. Butler then told the court that her mother is Princess Diana and she has been mistreated. She also indicated that she has been living in exile in the Bahamas for a long time and still has to adjust to the food and the language here. Butler also revealed that she has been in and out of prison and asked the court to send her to St. Helens instead. She explained that she is pregnant, noting that the food in prison stinks and the place reeks. After hearing her concerns, the chief magistrate told Butler she would have to be assessed at the prison and then referred to Sandilands. However, she promised to inform the prison about Butler's concerns. Antonia Butler returns to court on January 26, when she will be served with voluntary bill of indictment papers. Fern, Carey, ZNS Network News.
Now to the latest on those Bahamian men extradited to the United States. Accused drug lord Melvin Maycock Sr. and 7 of his alleged accomplices will face a U.S. jury on February 8th to answer to drug trafficking charges. Maycock, along with Carl Benson Culmer, Torrey Lockhart, Sheldon Moore, brothers Lyndon and Brian Deal, Gordon Newbold, and Wilfred Ferguson, were extradited to the United States back in December after the appellate court upheld a decision of the lower court approving the order of committal and the extradition. Federal prosecutors had requested the extradition back in 2004, but the extradition was stalled for some 10 years due to a number of appeals. The defendants had requested permission to appeal the extradition before the Privy Council, but that application was denied. The extradition order for Maycock's son, Melvin Jr., and Loran Lockhart was quashed earlier by then Senior Justice John Isaacs. Preparations are underway for the opening of the legal year tomorrow. Members of the legal fraternity will gather at Christ Church Cathedral for a religious service. They will then head to Bank Lane for the first sitting of the Supreme Court. Chief Justice Hartman Longley, Attorney General Allison Maynard Gibson, and the President of the Bar Association, Ellsworth Johnson, are expected to address the gathering at that time. It's anticipated that the new court year will be a busy one, with a long list of court cases scheduled for the magistrates and justices of the Supreme Court. At the same time, 47 appeals cases have already been listed by the court. An executive from one of the largest unions in the country is expressing concern about the impact of crime on our tourism product and the potential long-term impact of employment numbers. Our Fern Carey has more on that.
Hotel Union Executive Darren Woods expressing concern about the potential damaging effect of rising crime on the country's tourism product, citing the recent U.S. Embassy advisory following the alleged sexual attack on a tourist. Woods appealed to all Bahamians and, in particular, persons working in the tourism industry to do all they can to protect the tourism product.
A couple of post on Facebook where persons were actually telling people not from the cruise ships not to get off at the port of Nassau. The U.S. Embassy is issuing travel alerts. I could feel the pain because we right in the midst of it, and we don't want a situation where our tourism industry, where the tourists begin to stop coming. Because we had a little tip of that when we had the 9/11, and that wasn't something that was pleasant at all. And I want to encourage our personnel in the tourism industry, continue to work, continue to do your best for the tourists.
In addition, the union's general secretary indicated that more needs to be done to improve the labor climate in the country.
We are not pleased with what has transpired over the past 12 months and even before that. But we've gotten some assistance from the Minister of Labor and the government in one aspect where they ensure that the validity of the Hotel Workers Union is intact. And then, of course, you still have some persons who are even challenging what the government did. But as it relates to our relationship between us and the Employers Association, that is something that we definitely have to fix going forward. We have to find ways to coexist because we're all supposed to be working for the same common goal.
He noted that the hotel union will continue working to uphold the constitutional rights of its members.
Faced with a lot of challenges, and it seems as if we were unable to get our thrust, the things that we wanted to do for our membership, because we were actually faced with kind of trying to stabilize the union and ensure that the Hotel Workers Union continued to exist. And for the most part, a lot of people may not understand the severity of what we were trying to do. But going forward, we have yet to have our executive meeting because, of course, the year has just started. And one of the things that we are looking at is see how best we can try to get some of the plans that we want to do for our membership done this year.
Fern Carey, ZNS Network News.
Changes have already been put in place to better regulate the water sports industry, more specifically the jet ski industry, and more of those changes are on the way. Minister of Transport and Aviation, the Honorable Glenys Hannah Martin, updated the media on those changes following a U.S. Embassy advisory that could have crippling effects. Here's Cleopatra Murphy.
Officials are working hard to clean up the image of the water sports industry in the wake of the rape of a 24-year-old American tourist by a man believed to be a jet ski operator a little over a week ago, and the subsequent advisory from the U.S. Embassy encouraging American tourists to boycott what it called a loosely regulated industry. During a press conference Tuesday, Minister of Transport and Aviation, the Honorable Glenys Hannah Martin, announced that Royal Bahamas Defense Force officers are now conducting sea-based patrols, and beach marshals have been appointed from among jet ski operators. Additional port enforcement officials will be appointed, and new signage will be posted on beaches directing patrons of jet ski operators.
I am now in dialogue with the Minister of National Security on the role the Royal Bahamas Police Force will play in increasing surveillance on the beaches. These further reforms build upon work already undertaken by the ministry in a commitment to create a rational and well-ordered industry.
Since 2012, Port Authority Chairman Tavares Larota says the department has been moving to reform the industry with the reviews of licenses. Licensed operators were also encouraged to have them updated or they became dormant. He says years ago, a moratorium was put in place on commercial jet ski licenses. On January 1st, Larota says they also prohibited operators from riding with tourists.
If an operator is found in breach of that, disciplinary action, including the revocation of the license, could follow. In addition to that, we made certain requirements that spoke to a license being suspended automatically at certain trigger events, such as if for whatever reason a person is convicted of a criminal offense or if they are charged. Before a license is reviewed, we now require a person to be subject to enhanced police vetting.
Jet ski operator with Bahamas Water Sports, Patrick Glinton, says since the embassy advisory, business has suffered for operators on Paradise Island.
They ever let us in the hotel, and we've been getting stigmatized for years. And so we've been trying to address it for years, and we never had no proper feedback on it, And so now with this advisory, it even get even worse.
There has been no impact to businesses on Cable Beach yet, Action Water Sports owner Renwick Rose says, but he is concerned.
We look at this as a wake-up call for the industry, and we like to collaborate with, like I said before, with the U.S. Embassy and also with the hotels, because all the operators, as you could see here today, is a representation of this industry that we have built from scratch to what it is now.
As jet ski operators and officials wait to see what long-term effects the advisory will have on the industry, last week 29-year-old Kevin Romer, who was not a registered operator, was charged with the rape of the tourist that put the industry in turmoil. Cleopatra Murphy, ZNS Network News.
Defense Force and Basra officials are searching for two missing fishermen who were last seen in waters between the Berry Islands and Bimini. The men are reportedly aboard a dinghy which was attached to the mothership Blessing when its captain lost sight of the pair. Now, they were last spotted in that area around 2 p.m. Sunday. Now, the vessel is an 18-foot green skiff. Mark Cartwright and Charles Brown have been identified as the men on board, and mariners and beachgoers in the area are being asked to keep a lookout for the men and lend assistance if they can. Despite attempts to get a grip on the growing illegal immigration problem, and with amendments to the Immigration Act last year, Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell says illegal migration continues to be a problem. Up to October of last year, officials from the department say they arrested 1,634 Haitian nationals on land and 984 on sea, while 544 illegal immigrants of other nationalities were apprehended. More than 3,000 illegal immigrants were also repatriated to their home countries. Mitchell, who spoke on the Darrell Miller live show yesterday, says along with smuggling, immigration officials also have to deal with people who attempt to undermine apprehension efforts. He says courts also appear slow in catching up with legislation.
Changed back in May of last year. came into force on the 11th of May last year, which upped the penalties to $10,000 fine and 5 years in jail. But that message doesn't seem to have gotten over to the courts, because we think that people are still being given $150 fines, a slap on the wrist, when they're caught in these situations. And so what we're trying to do is a better job of public education, that the fact that Parliament has passed a law, and we believe that the policy of increased penalties ought to assist in trying to stop this problem.
A major traffic exercise by police yesterday led to several arrests. The roadblocks were conducted in the Montague area. Dozens of drivers were ticketed and several others were arrested for offenses ranging from driving with non-regulation tints, open containers of alcohol, and outstanding warrants. Head of the operation, Superintendent Craig Stubbs, says it was an island-wide initiative.
We are stationed at just about every major thoroughfare on the Providence tonight, on the day. One particular those areas we find the beaches, where we find persons are now enjoying the holiday. We have officers there that are monitoring the drivers, see where persons have consumed excessive amount of alcohol, and if that is the case, we are taking necessary actions to either detain them or find a designated driver to get from point A to point B. We're also enforcing the rules and regulations of the streets today. We find many of the drivers here today, we find unlicensed vehicle. We find the seat belts not being enforced. So we are here enforcing the rules and regulations of the street today to ensuring the safety of all who conveys from point A to point B on the streets today.
Now, with traffic fatalities being a major concern for police, Superintendent Stubbs says new strategies will be implemented this year.
Because we want to ensure the public safety. We had one too many deaths last year. And one of our reasons being we find maybe on the holidays late at night, we find persons just driving in excess of the speed limit or driving under the influence. So this year we're trying to take a different approach so we can deal with it more differently.